Guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new or simply not yet subscribed, I'm Brittany, and definitely make sure to hit that subscribe button. My mom's anniversary of her death is coming up in a couple of days, so I've been a little bit off, just all kind of been a lot. So if my energy is a little bit off in this video, that's why. But anyways, today we're going to be talking about the Oddfellows home as well as the secret society. The Oddfellows Society was founded in 1745. However, the one that we're going to be talking about is the Americanized version, which was based off the one in England. And that one was organized in Baltimore, Maryland in 1819 by Thomas Wadler. And it's still active to this day. They are a fraternal organization that is dedicated to providing aid to members and their families. And they have operated a number of homes in the United States. These homes provided care and shelter for elderly or ill Oddfellows, widows, or their children. One of these locations was on a 240-acre farm in Liberty, which was known as the Oddfellows Home District, and this was established in 1900. This complex was constructed near the newly discovered mineral springs, and a hotel would be placed there that was later renamed the Winter Hotel. This hotel was built in 1888 and became a popular wellness and relaxation retreat for visitors across the country. The hotel would change names a few times, but would ultimately be purchased in 1895 by the Oddfellows. So essentially, it was just this really big area that was owned by the Oddfellows. There would be a brick administration building, a school, a hospital, and a farm. There would also be a cemetery, and all of that was built between 1900 and 1930. A new hospital and nursing home would then be added to the complex in the 1950s. Residents who were of good health were expected to work on the farm, and they would use the produce from the farm to feed the people living there, as well as selling it for a profit. At the height of the district, it would house 200 children and adults, and by the early 1950s, the orphanage would close. The area would, however, remain open for permanent hospital patients and convalescent members. At the same time, the Grand Lodge would actually vote to allow paying non-members to stay at the hospital. The Oddfellows home and hospital would actually stay open until 1933, which, remember, in the 1950s, a new one was built, so that was the original one. A local family in the wine business would end up buying the property in the early 1990s, and they still own it to this day. The lobby of the main building does house a small exhibit dedicated to Oddfellows artifacts and regalia. And this includes a real human skeleton that is said to have been a past member who just kind of left their body to the Oddfellows. Oddfellows symbols are still visible in the main building, and with every secret society comes, well, secrecy. And some of those would come to light in 2004 when a young woman of the Show Me Spirit All-Stars cheerleading team was about to practice in a building that the team had rented in Houston, Missouri, that had the letters IOOF written above the door. As the coaches would walk through the building, they would notice a primitive security system with door buzzers and peepholes. They would also find old robes and ledgers, and a book that would hint to a mysterious history. For example, the spine of Volume 1 read, IOOF Working Rituals. Now, it's not crazy for secret societies to have initiation rituals and whatnot, and maybe some hazing, we know it happens. But then they would stumble across 3 coffins. Now, 2 of those coffins contain skeletons that were 100% fake, but the third one looked too real. One of the girls' mothers had asked local authorities to kind of, take a look at this. So they did some testing, and it turned out that it was a real human skeleton. And all anyone knew of those remains was that it belonged to the Independent Order of the Oddfellows. There was dirt in the coffin, which suggested that it may have once been buried, and that would have meant that somebody had to dig it up, which probably was not the right thing to do. But then why did they have these skeletons? Well, like all secret organizations, theirs was no different in the fact that they had ritualistic behaviors to indoctrinate new members. However, within secret societies, not all of these rituals were harmless, such as in 1913, a loyal order of moose ritual would turn deadly when 2 candidates in Birmingham, Alabama would die. They were tricked into believing that senior members were branding them with a hot iron. However, the iron was cool, but they had attached a battery connection that had sent a sensation up their bodies, which resulted in both of the people having a heart attack and dying. Nights of tabloor ceremony in 1916 would also almost result in death, when a member would trip and fall on a sword. He did survive, but he sued the knights in an act of decidedly non-fraternal obligation. But again, what about the bodies with the Oddfellows? Well, more would turn up. In 2001, there was an electrician in Warrenton, Virginia, named Paul Wallace, and he was repairing circuits in an old building that previously occupied Oddfellows. When he would come across the space between 2 walls, he would pull out the contents, and he discovered a black box. Inside was a skeleton covered in a white shroud. Wallace would obviously then call the police. In 2000, a theater worker in Missouri was offered 2 free caskets by Consolidating Oddfellows Lodge. One would have a plaster skeleton, but the other was real. In 2008, a man in Wayne Township, Pennsylvania, named David Simmons, was helping renovate his grandfather's home when he saw something strange in between the floorboards of a crawl space. I hate crawl spaces. He shined his flashlight, and he noticed an old clock, lantern, and around 50 bones. So other skeletons would pop up in California, Indiana, Missouri, Nebraska, New York, Oklahoma, and Virginia. Well, the answer to the numerous amounts of skeletons that were being found, that obviously the Oddfellows would use them in some sort of ritual. When a possible new member was ready to join the ranks of the society, initiation would involve wearing goggles with built-in blinds that could be open and shut. Sometimes the individual would be weighed down by chains, and then they would be led into this torchlit or candlelit room. When the blinds were open, they would be face to face with a real life human skeleton. The practice was known as the Lodge of Reflection, and it was intended to remind members of their own mortality. No matter a person's wealth or stature, we all end up the same in the end. This practice dates back to 1797. Lodges were able to acquire the skeletons through medical supply companies or businesses that specialized in supplying the large demand for items that were useful in fraternal orders. One catalog at the beginning of the 20th century even advertised real skeletons as genuine and life-sized and fairly deodorized, and to simply call for a price. Obviously, it's not legal anymore. Authorities would investigate, and they found no foul play, and then hand the bones off to forensic anthropologists, museums, universities, and some would be buried. However, it wouldn't surprise me if this was one of those things that would just get swept under the rug. As far as the Oddfellows home district, though, it is said to be one of the most haunted places in Missouri. Only 3 of the original buildings remain, and it's believed that almost 600 people that are buried in the cemetery, that most of them are still wandering around. Ghost sightings have included orphan children, a mischievous man, and a singing old lady. People have heard odd voices and noises, including children giggling and running up and down stairs. Doors have opened and closed by themselves. The owner has even witnessed a little boy in a red shirt, blue pants, and brown boots who appear near the fireplace. They could clearly see the little boy, however, they could see all the details of the fireplace through the little boy. Children have been heard singing Ring Around the Rosie in the halls, and the owner's daughter heard a little girl talk to her. The piano will also be played on its own. The most haunted building is the old brick hospital that was constructed in 1923, and it's located near the northern end of the property. Over time, this hospital would become outdated and the halls would be too small for wheelchairs or hospital beds. And as a solution, the nursing home would be built in 1955. On one occasion while investigating the hospital, a woman had to sit down because she felt unsteady. She stood after a few minutes, but then she hit her head on the wall. Her eyes rolled back in her head and she was sweating. When she came to, she had no memory of this happening. During that same investigation, investigators would hear a deep growl coming from the room that is known as the mischievous man's room. When they heard it a second time, one woman offered to see what it was. But as she got closer to the room, she felt this immense amount of dread, so much that she didn't even make it to the room. Instead, she turned around. In the administration building, which was once an orphanage, equipment went crazy when investigators were singing Mary Had a Little Lamb. And in an outbuilding that was once used for food storage, it said that it used to be a favorite hiding place for orphans to kind of avoid doing chores. And while investigators were using dowsing rods, they had asked, "Where are your friends?" And the rods pointed to that area. When it was time to say goodbye, one woman reported the feeling of being hugged. Voices laughing and singing are the most common reports of evidence. And some people have experienced seeing apparitions or shadow people on the property. One man saw someone peeking around the corner, and the feeling of being watched is quite common. Some even report the feeling as somebody grabbing their shoulders. So obviously there's a lot going on here. I'm sure the Oddfellows Society has some pretty dark secrets. So I feel like a lot of secret societies have a lot of dark secrets. But there's a reason why so many spirits are still there. And I'm curious what that is. Let me know if you guys have ever been here, what you guys think of the society, as well as the fact that they used real life skeletons for a ritual. I guess the premise of mortality is, interesting. Like, that's not bad in itself, but to use someone's body, probably not great. I don't know if you guys have ever been to the home district and experienced anything. If you have had any paranormal experiences in general, I would love to hear about them. You can go ahead and email me at brittanybriereghost@gmail.com. Make sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and until my next video, love you guys. Bye.